Welcome back to DreamHarbour, Traveler. Tonight, I would like to tell you a story called The Conservatory Curator Who Kept Quiet Places. Long before the morning sun reached the glass roof of an old conservatory, one gentle lantern already glowed among the leaves. Dew rested on broad emerald fronds. Tiny white blossoms opened to the cool air, and a single figure moved slowly between winding stone paths, greeting every plant as though welcoming old friends home. I have another story for you tonight. It is not a story about grand discoveries or distant adventures. It is simply the story of a quiet person whose life became a place of rest for others, even without ever meaning to. And perhaps, as we spend a little while together beneath warm glass and gentle branches, you may find that quiet places have a way of caring for us long after we leave them. The conservatory stood where several old walking paths happened to meet. No one quite remembered who had first built it. Some said it had once belonged to a botanist who wished to gather flowers from every peaceful corner of the world. Others believed the glass halls had simply grown there, as naturally as moss settles upon old stones. No matter which story people preferred, everyone agreed on one thing. Inside those glass walls, the world always seemed to breathe more slowly. Its curator was named Rowan. His mornings always began before anyone else arrived. He unlocked the weathered wooden gate while the sky still carried pale shades of lavender. Then he lit the small lantern that rested beside the entrance, not because the pathways were dark, but because warm light had a way of saying welcome before words ever could. Only after the lantern glowed would Rowan begin his gentle rounds. He never hurried. Each corner of the conservatory seemed to deserve its own moment of attention. He would pause beside hanging vines whose tiny leaves shimmered like green rain. He would straighten a small stone that had shifted beside a pond. He would remove a single fallen petal from a pathway so carefully that the flower itself scarcely seemed disturbed. Sometimes birds flew through the open roof windows before deciding they preferred the garden outside. Sometimes butterflies wandered in. Neither was ever rushed away. The conservatory seemed happy to borrow their company for a little while. The building itself held many rooms. One was warm and filled with citrus trees whose blossoms carried the faintest sweetness through the air. Another sheltered towering ferns that unfurled new fronds so slowly that even those who visited every day rarely noticed the change until weeks had passed. There was a moss room where stones wore soft green blankets, thicker than velvet. There was a fern gallery where tiny streams wandered quietly beneath little wooden bridges. There was even a room devoted entirely to plants that bloomed only in the evening, opening delicate petals just as daylight slipped away. Every room had its own silence. Not empty silence, comfortable silence, the kind that welcomed every slow breath. Rowan believed every place deserved to keep its own rhythm. He never forced one room to resemble another. He simply cared for each according to its own nature. Visitors often noticed this without knowing exactly why. Many came intending to stay for only a few minutes. Quite often they remained for hours, not because there was so much to see, because there was finally nowhere they needed to hurry. Among the visitors was an elderly woman who liked to sit beside the pond every Tuesday morning. She always carried a small notebook. Most days she wrote only one sentence before closing it again. Once Rowan asked if she ever wished to write more. She smiled. "One peaceful sentence is enough." He nodded. That seemed exactly right. There was also a young artist who visited whenever the weather outside felt too loud. Instead of painting flowers, she painted light. She would spend long afternoons watching sunshine move across broad leaves until she found the exact color she wished to remember. When she left, she always thanked Rowan as though he had personally arranged the sunlight. He simply smiled. I only opened the door. Perhaps his favorite visitors were those who arrived without knowing why they had come. Sometimes they wandered uncertainly through the entrance. Their shoulders rested a little higher than comfort required. Their thoughts seemed somewhere far beyond the glass walls. Rowan never greeted them with many questions. He simply offered a map. Though the map showed every path, it also contained one unusual note. It read, "Choose whichever path feels slower." Many people smiled when they saw those words. Some folded the map into a pocket without looking further. Others followed it exactly. Almost all eventually forgot the map entirely. Because once they had begun walking slowly, the conservatory itself became enough. Every afternoon, Rowan paused for tea beneath a great fig tree whose branches spread almost to the ceiling. He always prepared 2 cups, one for himself, one for whoever might happen to arrive. Sometimes no one did. The second cup simply cooled beside him. Its quiet presence somehow still felt welcoming. More often than not, someone appeared before long. A traveler resting tired feet. A gardener from another village. A musician carrying an instrument but no particular destination. A child fascinated by the turtles that basked upon warm stones beside the pond. Whoever arrived found a warm cup already waiting. Conversations remained gentle. No one spoke loudly beneath the fig tree. Perhaps because leaves have always preferred softer voices. Perhaps because peaceful places gently teach peaceful habits. One autumn afternoon, though inside the conservatory every season mingled kindly together, a visitor arrived carrying nothing but a small satchel and an expression that seemed quietly worn. He introduced himself simply as Elias. "I heard there was a place where people could sit for a while." "There is," Rowan answered. "You've already found it." Elias laughed softly. "I wasn't sure." "You needn't be." There was no ceremony, no explanation. Rowan simply walked beside him. Together they visited the fern gallery, then the orchid room, then the winding stream where smooth stones rested beneath clear water. Neither felt any need to speak very much. Sometimes companionship asks only that footsteps remain nearby. The next morning, Elias returned. Then the day after. Soon it became his habit to help without asking. He swept small pathways, filled watering cans, opened roof windows when warm afternoons invited fresh breezes inside. He never seemed to notice that he had begun belonging there. Rowan noticed, but he said nothing. Belonging often arrives most gently when left unnamed. One rainy evening, the conservatory roof became 1,000 tiny drums. Raindrops tapped softly across the glass while warm mist gathered among broad tropical leaves. Visitors remained longer than usual. No one seemed eager to leave while such comforting weather surrounded them. Someone began reading quietly from an old book. Another visitor knitted beside the pond. A little child counted turtles until sleepiness made counting impossible. Rowan carried blankets from a cedar chest, not because anyone had asked, simply because warm shoulders seem happier than cool ones. Soon blankets rested across laps. Tea steamed gently. Rain continued its patient music. It became one of those evenings people remembered without recalling exactly why. Years later, they would simply say, "There was a rainy night in the conservatory that felt especially peaceful." Sometimes memories need no greater detail. The conservatory also held traditions that almost no visitor noticed at first. Every evening, Rowan rang a tiny bronze bell exactly once. Not to announce closing time, not to gather anyone, only to thank the day for passing gently. The sound floated through every room. Birds scarcely reacted. Leaves remained still. Even the streams seemed to carry the note a little farther before allowing it to fade. Visitors often paused without understanding why. The single bell somehow invited every thought to grow quieter. Another tradition belonged to the stones. Near the entrance rested a wide bowl filled with smooth river pebbles. Anyone leaving could choose one. No payment, no explanation. Many carried a stone home. Months later, they would discover it inside a coat pocket or beside a windowsill. Holding it again, they remembered how slowly they had breathed inside the glass halls. Some returned years afterward with another stone from somewhere meaningful. Soon the bowl contained pebbles from quiet rivers, gentle beaches, forest paths, mountain streams, and forgotten gardens. Each one carried silence from somewhere else. Rowan liked that very much. He believed peaceful places recognized one another. As seasons quietly circled, the conservatory changed almost imperceptibly. Vines lengthened. Trees widened their branches. Moss softened older stones. Visitors became familiar faces. Children grew taller. Hair turned silver. New friendships unfolded as patiently as fern fronds. Nothing needed to happen quickly. Time itself seemed content to stroll. One spring morning, Rowan found a tiny handwritten note resting beneath the lantern near the entrance. It contained only a single sentence. "Thank you for keeping a place where nothing expects me." There was no signature. He folded the note carefully and placed it inside a small wooden box where he kept similar messages. There were not many, just enough to remind him that quiet work often leaves deep echoes. Years passed. The conservatory remained neither famous nor forgotten. People simply continued finding it whenever they needed gentleness. Some arrived after joyful celebrations, some after long journeys, some after ordinary afternoons that had somehow become unexpectedly tiring. The doors welcomed each in exactly the same way. Light first, then silence, then pathways waiting without hurry. As for Elias, he eventually became almost as familiar to visitors as Rowan himself. He learned the names of every tree. He remembered which orchids preferred morning shade. He could hear when one small fountain needed cleaning simply by the sound of falling water. One evening he asked Rowan a quiet question. "Why do you think people love this place so much?" Rowan considered the leaves above them. Finally he answered, "I don't think they come because everything here is beautiful. No, they come because nothing here asks them to become someone else." Elias reflected upon that for a long while. The fig leaves stirred gently overhead. Perhaps they agreed. Perhaps they were simply greeting the evening breeze. There came a season when Rowan moved a little more slowly than before. His hair carried more silver. His footsteps became softer. Visitors hardly noticed. He had always walked gently. Now he simply walked even more gently. He still lit the entrance lantern every morning. Still brewed 2 cups of tea. Still rang the evening bell. Still paused to admire new leaves that had quietly appeared overnight. Nothing needed changing. Peace rarely requires improvement. Only care. Only presence. One morning, before sunrise, Rowan invited Elias to light the lantern beside the entrance. "I've always liked watching it glow," Rowan said. "So have I. Then perhaps today you should be the one who welcomes the morning." Elias accepted the match with careful hands. The lantern awakened exactly as it always had. Warm, steady, patient. Visitors that day noticed nothing unusual, only that the entrance somehow felt especially welcoming. Perhaps kindness shines most brightly when quietly shared. Eventually the habit became theirs together. Some mornings Rowan lit the lantern. Some mornings Elias did. The light never seemed concerned which pair of hands held the flame. It only wished to greet another peaceful day. By then many visitors believed the conservatory itself somehow recognized familiar footsteps. Children insisted certain flowers bloomed brighter when regular guests arrived. Older visitors smiled. Perhaps they secretly believed it too. After all, places cared for with affection often seem wonderfully alive. Evening after evening the bronze bell continued its single clear note. Tea continued steaming beneath the fig tree. Rain continued painting music upon the glass whenever clouds wandered overhead. The turtles continued choosing the warmest stones. The birds continued borrowing the roof before returning to open skies. Everything remained beautifully ordinary. And because it remained ordinary, it became extraordinary in its own quiet way. There are places like that. Places which become part of us not through excitement, but through repetition. The same path, the same bench, the same tree, the same welcome, until one day we realize they have gently taught our hearts how to rest. As the years softened onward, Rowan spent longer moments simply sitting beneath the great fig tree. He watched sunlight wander slowly across the floor. He listened to distant fountains. He noticed how every visitor eventually discovered their own favorite corner without needing directions. The conservatory had become less a garden than a conversation between people and peace. Words were optional. Presence was enough. Sometimes Rowan closed his eyes while birds fluttered overhead. Not to sleep, only to listen. Leaves have countless voices. Some whisper, some rustle, some seem to breathe. Together they create a language that asks nothing except quiet attention. If you listen long enough, you might almost believe the trees were thanking everyone for moving so gently among them. The afternoons grew calmer. Visitors spoke more softly. Even footsteps seemed to understand they belonged to somewhere tender. Shadows lengthened across warm stone. Golden light rested upon broad leaves. Water reflected little pieces of sky. Nothing hurried toward evening. Even sunset arrived politely. One evening Rowan and Elias shared tea without speaking at all. Steam curled upward. The fig leaves shifted. Far away, someone turned the page of a book. The tiny bronze bell waited patiently for its usual moment. Finally, Rowan smiled. This place never belonged to me. Elias looked around the peaceful hall. No, it belongs to everyone who remembers how to be still. The words drifted into silence. Silence welcomed them kindly, and somehow that felt complete. Perhaps every quiet place is cared for by someone. Not always a curator. Sometimes a librarian. Sometimes a gardener. Sometimes a baker opening before dawn. Sometimes simply a neighbor who leaves an extra chair upon the porch. Their work is rarely noticed while it is happening. Only afterward do we understand how gently they held the world together. The conservatory remained exactly as it had always hoped to remain. Open, patient, warm. Its lantern continued glowing beside the entrance each morning. Its bell continued thanking each evening. Its paths continued inviting slower footsteps. Its leaves continued unfolding one quiet day at a time. Nothing needed to become larger. Nothing needed to become famous. It was enough that weary people found themselves breathing more deeply before they realized they had done so. It was enough that visitors often left smiling without quite knowing why. It was enough that somewhere beneath glass warmed by gentle sunlight, a cup of tea always waited beside the fig tree. As our own evening grows quieter now, we may leave Rowan among his familiar leaves. He is checking a fern whose newest frond has nearly unfurled. Elias is lighting the lantern by the entrance. Some visitors wander peaceful paths. Others simply rest beside still water. The turtles remain upon their favorite stones. The fountains continue their soft conversation. The great glass roof reflects a sky slowly filling with stars. Nothing asks to be remembered exactly, only gently, only warmly. And so, traveler, our story finds its way home once more. Beyond every quiet garden, beyond every winding path, beyond every lantern glowing beneath gentle leaves. The tide is moving softly again. The lights of DreamHarbour wait along the shore, just as they always do. I have been here while you wandered through the conservatory. I am here now as you return. The harbor remembers every traveler, even when the morning carries the stories away like mist above calm water. If tonight you remember only the feeling of slow footsteps, warm light beneath glass, and a place where nothing expected you to become anyone else, that will be more than enough. The lanterns shine gently across the water. The waves breathe against the quiet docks. The night has become wonderfully still. You have nowhere else to be. Nothing more to follow. Nothing left to hold. Only the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. Only the comforting knowledge that DreamHarbour will always be waiting when evening comes again. Rest well, dear traveler. I will keep the lantern lit until you return. Good night.